In this video, we'll be swapping out the stock bed for the new Mandala Ultra Flat Bed and Adapter. First thing you need to make sure is that our printer is turned off, mains are disconnected. Should have your gantry all the way back, print head in the center or off to the side. Take your build plate out. We're going to first flip the printer, but I wanted to show where the mounting screws are. There are 6 in total, and we'll remove these once we get the electrical disconnected from underneath. You have an enclosure, make sure the top is removed. If it is removable, mine is tempered glass, and that your doors are closed when you flip it on its back. With the printer flipped on its back, you can get to the electronics. Your undercarriage will look vastly different than mine, but I am still currently utilizing the factory SSR, power supply, and wagon connections to expand electronics. Now is a very good time to talk about the connections here at the factory switch, which can be quite loose, which can also lead to high heat loads from a poor connection and potential fire hazards. So I have gone and redid each one of these to make sure that there was no play whatsoever. The whole switch moves, but the connection does not. These are great for adding and removing components quickly. The wiring colors I use is not exactly kosher for North America, but as long as you know yellow is ground, which I changed to green, your black, which is typically your hot, and then red would be a neutral, is what same as white. So the L1 or L2 if you had 240, or L1 if you were just 120 like this. You need to flip the covers up to gain access to the little spade connectors for the factory original SSR. We'll be removing all of these. Take a photo and or write it down where each one of these connectors, they are labeled on the PCB underneath. We'll be utilizing most of these, and the wiring, as you can see here, passes through directly to the PCB heater on the board. We'll be passing the new wires through, replacing this with the new SSR that I have printed a DIN rail mount because I DIN railed my electronics. And as you can see, there are fewer connections needed here. We'll be utilizing this connection here, which goes to the main board. This is the 24 volt signal that activates this, and then you have your mains power will come into the SSR and then pass through to the heater bed. With the factory SSR removed, I have mounted the new replacement SSR. We'll be disconnecting the ground that's mounted to the frame here and passing it through when we remove the board. We'll be reusing this as this is bolted to the factory board, and we'll be attaching it to the bottom of our replacement Mandala Roseworks bed, and then reattaching the ground and make sure it's securely fastened to the frame. We'll then continue with our connections to the new SSR and to the main board and tidy up our wiring. Surely is a lot smaller than the original. Also, to make sure you disconnect the thermistor from the main board. The factory main board is located over here. With the printer flipped back up, right, we can now remove the 6 bolts. I'll retain it down. I have one left. Mine were just snug. I had that since I assembled the printer essentially so that the bed could expand properly. Very minimal toppling effect because of that. Easy way to remove is if you have a little magnet, you can pull the bolts right out of the bed real easy. Now with all 6 of the bolts removed, you can remove the original bed plate assembly. Carefully lifting and removing the electrical through the hole, and then you can remove the whole bed plate and heater assembly. Once the factory bed is removed, you can install the Mandala Roseworks bed adapter plate. It sits flush with the base plastics. The shoulder underneath the head bolt is plenty thick enough that you do not need to have a spacer underneath, but if you would like to have a nice solid column all the way down, you can print a spacer out of ASA or ABS that is 3.7 millimeters thick by 11.5 millimeters in diameter, and that'll simulate a standoff that'll be flush with the bottom of this plate. The factory bed plate actually sits up a little higher on the inside versus the edge that drops all the way down, and it's almost 5 millimeters tall in total. Each of the little locations has a magnet just below the two rods to help retain the bed. They're pretty strong. It holds the bed pretty good, but I wouldn't trust it to hold the bed if you ever had to flip it on its back or its side. So recommend securing it with the bolts that are included, or if you do use spacers and space the bed plate up slightly, you can use the little printable clips that snap in from the sides and hold it in place. Here's the cutout for the factory wiring. Perfectly matches the original. We'll be feeding the wiring through here and then connecting it to our SSR after securing the bed to the adapter. And for the wiring of the bed, we have the AC coming out from the heater to the fuse and then back down. The other leg of the heater comes out with the ground connected. I have moved both connections to the ground and the thermal fuse to the back because I did not want to see them. They were quite visible right here. So next step is to feed this through the access hole and set the bed back in the printer. With the bed placed in the printer and secured back to the adapter plate, we'll flip the printer back over and finish the wiring. With the printer back on its side, here you can see the completed wiring for the SSR. One leg comes up to the printer. I wanted enough slack so I could remove the bed up, tilt it up if I needed to. One leg of the bed goes to SSR. One leg of the mains goes to the other. The other leg from the heater goes to the mains on the L side. This will be your N side. The 24 control is polarity sensitive, so you need to make sure that the positive wire is the positive control and ground is on the ground side. I grounded the SSR to the frame and then to the main using a Wago. This is a plastic DIN rail adapter, and my DIN rails are not grounded because this is isolated on a plastic holder as well, but it's grounded here. So every component in here is grounded, chassis, bed, and components. Very important. The last part I need to do is just to add the connector for the thermistor wire and plug it back into the main board. Flip the printer back over and we'll do a PID tune and check bed mesh on the new installed bed. After successfully booting the printer, these are the thermistor settings for the Kevo Min-Max 750 watt bed heater that I used. Depending on what bed heater you use, you'll have to change the settings, but this will at least give you an idea of what it should look like. After this, we'll run a PID tune, heat soak, and then run a bed mesh to see how the new bed turns out. After performing a PID tune, heat soaking the bed, and running a quick mesh, you can see the range is 0.0995, which is excellent. Better than what I was able to get on the stock bed. And edgewise, no lifted edges. They're just flat across the board. What a difference. No taco whatsoever. And I can confidently print edge to edge now. Worth the money? Absolutely to me. Absolutely. So in conclusion, installation was pretty straightforward. Wiring was pretty easy. The only thing I noticed after everything is said and done, and it's just because of my particular use case, this bed sits up taller than the original, which is something I need for my tool changer setup. But my purge bucket and cleaning brush now sit too low. So I will have to reprint those to be a matched height, but I'm going to wait until I get the correct bed height I need. I may need to make aluminum spacers and raise it up a little farther, because this tool head as it sits now will actually sit higher up, about 10 millimeters, with the tool head tool changer carriage. So, but if you're just going for completely stock, the original touchpad in the back will sit lower, so you'll have to make a spacer for that. But it's practically useless to begin with. I ditched it from the get-go. But for flatness, this thing's a beauty, absolute beauty. And the air gap below it, as you can see, I do plan on using a blower fan mounted in the back here to blow air underneath the bed to help act as a chamber heater. So win-win all the way around. Let me know if you guys have any questions, comments, and I will answer any questions you may have.